Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the 2021 South Carolina African American Tourism Conference. Our purpose here today is to educate the community about resources that are available to African Americans who want to endeavor in the tourism business. There are a plethora of resources in our state for this $20 billion industry. And if you want to access it, today's sessions will provide you information. Our first session today, the one that we're about to start, is for small businesses. How can small businesses find the resources needed to start their business and to grow their business, whether you're new or existing? So I'm excited to have with us today an esteemed group of panelists, starting off with Mr. John Gethers, who's with the South Carolina Small Business Development Center. We also have Anthony Brockington, who is with the Commission on Minority Affairs with South Carolina, with our state. And then we have Cindy Rourke, who is the Executive Director for the Climb Fund, a new and exciting program where you can access capital for your dreams. So without any further ado, what we're going to do, just an overview of today's session. We're going to start off with everybody just quickly introduce themselves, who they are, a little bit about their background. And then we'll do a round where everyone will talk about their programming, specifically what resources they have, what technical assistance that they have, some of their criteria for their programming, and how you can contact them and set up an appointment and get those resources. And then finally, we'll have a little Q&A session where we discuss some of the opportunities that are coming up and how we can get ready for those opportunities in the African American community. Again, $20 billion in the tourism industry, but there are so many other opportunities that we need to get ready for. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Got all of our panelists. Let's go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves. We'll go with ladies first. Cindy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Cindy Rourke. I have been with this organization for almost 14 years now. I'm excited as their new CEO and a new name for our organization. You may have known us as LDC in the past, but we're now Climb Fund because we're serving the entire state of South Carolina, and we are a loan fund, but we are here to help people climb to the heights that they want to reach. So based in Charleston, but serving the state of South Carolina.
Mr. Brockington.
Yes, sir. Good morning to everyone. My name is Anthony Brockington, and I am the Small Minority Business Program Manager for the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs. And our whole purpose of it and intent and why we exist is, number one, to be a catalyst for smaller minority businesses throughout the state, and also provide two things, which is to serve as research and a resource for smaller minority businesses throughout the state of South Carolina. And we're excited about this morning. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you with us today. So we've got John is going to be joining us in a quick second as he comes back in. So Mr. Brockington, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your program, some of the assistance that you provide. I'm excited to learn more about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, we are a state agency, and we have 4 program areas of the population, but there are many others that we actually serve, which are the African American, Native American, Asian American, and Hispanic American. And as I mentioned before, we serve as a resource and a research to those minority businesses throughout the state of South Carolina to help them start, grow, or expand their business. And we do that through multiple partnerships, Mr. Campbell, that we've established throughout the state. A lot of those are public and private partnerships, meaning that we will partner with such agencies as the SBA, SBDC, who's on the call today as well, Department of Commerce, and many other state and local agencies around the state. One of the things that we do, like I mentioned, is that we want businesses to grow and expand. And one of the things that we connect them with, like Cindy mentioned earlier, is access to funding or access to capital. That is a big hurdle for a lot of smaller minority businesses. We know that COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on our small businesses, and we know that small businesses are the lifeblood. They are the backbone of this nation. So what we do as advocates is that, like I said, we connect them with resources, and we do that by partnering with SBA and offering different classes such as federal contract and how to gain those contracts so that they can make money and establish that economic prosperity for their business. We also facilitate a process of them becoming MBE certified with SCDOT so that they can actually bid on those federal contracts. We know that the South Carolina Department of Transportation, there's a huge infrastructure bill we all are aware of that's going to be coming down the pipeline as well. And businesses need to be in position that they're positioned themselves and that they are prepared to bid on those federal contracts. So we help facilitate that process as well. We encourage businesses to stay plugged in through their local chambers of commerce because a lot of times we're receiving information and we're channeling that information down through many different resources and through many different media outlets by Facebook, live broadcasts, email, just a plethora of communication outlets that we're receiving. One of the resources that I do want to highlight and mention is the Women's Business Center that's located on the campus of Benedict College. That is a phenomenal source for small and minority businesses. The second one that I want to mention is that our small business development centers that are strategically located throughout the state and how we partner with them. We actually have an MOU, a memorandum of agreement with the SBDC. And so we're working closely with them as well. And finally, not to mention, is with our SBA partnership that we have with them as well. We work very closely with the SBA in offering different classes that will help small and minority business owners facilitate that process to grow and expand their business. And Mr. Campbell, you can stop me at any time, but I don't want to keep going to take up much time, but there's just so much available. And our passion is for small and minority businesses. We want to help them. And that's what we're here for. We have a website, and it is cma.sc.gov, where any business owner can actually go online and find tons of information that we have available. And you can also, as a business owner, or even as an organization, as a nonprofit, register with us to receive updates as we receive that information as well. One of the most recent things that we sent out was the auto loan. We recently emailed that out to several business owners, and several of them have taken advantage of that.
Thank you, Mr. Brockington. That's you have an outstanding program, a lot of good partnerships, and it's all about leveraging partnerships and getting the information to the community. I've got another organization here, Climb Fund, that I'm hoping that you could develop some partnerships with after this meeting. I'm glad to be able to be the catalyst to bring you guys together. So I'm excited about that. Cindy, I'm excited about your new role as the executive director. A long time coming. You've been working in this field, working with small businesses. I've watched you make people's dreams come true by providing them the capital they needed to develop and grow their business. So tell us about the Climb Fund and some of the exciting things that you're doing.
Thank you, Claudio. I know we go way back, and so you've really seen this organization grow and truly help a lot of people. And I'm extremely fortunate and humbled to be sitting in the seat and leading the organization. Is it possible for me to bring my screen up? There you go. Oh my gosh. So again, I am the newly appointed CEO of the Climb Fund. We are an organization that's been around for many years doing some really good things, but now we're poised to do a lot of great things. There we go. What you should know about us is a lot of information, but what you should really feel about us is some of these pictures that you're going to see in the slideshow. These are people that we were able to support and watch their businesses blossom. So we are a mission-driven small business lender. We exist to create access to capital for small businesses and some affordable housing development that cannot get traditional bank financing. So of course, we see a lot of startups, a lot of industries that that banks just really can't get their arm around, like restaurants, retail, hospitality, that kind of thing. I am pleased to say that we now serve the entire state of South Carolina. We were raised in Charleston, slowly expanded to Tri-County, but now have funds for the entire state. We are a nonprofit, but we're regulated only, we're audited annually to make sure that we're meeting mission, not how we lend, but really who we lend to. That's why we are a state and federally certified community development financial institution, or a CDFI, that you may have heard of. We were funded in 1979 as the Charleston Citywide Local Development Corporation, but we became Climb Fund in July of this year. This slide is just a little dated because it says that we've made over 455 loans, but guys, we're closing loans every single week. So we're actually closer to the 500 loan made, $24.3 million lent, over 1,100 jobs created, 472 units of affordable housing created. And it says over the years, since 1979, 92% of our clients have successfully repaid their loans. But this year, it's more like 98. You can see the reason that we had to rebrand ourselves as Climb Fund, because last year, 22% of all of the dollars lent in the history of the organization were lent in 2020. 9% of all the loans that were made in 2020. And guys, that's in a pandemic year. So we were really able to help those businesses that were able to pivot and find opportunities in that disaster. And we were able to support them and watch them grow. You know, like I said, for many, many years, we did some really good things until 2019. And then we went outside of our backyard, if you will. And in 2020 and now in 2021, we've started lending in Beaufort, Georgetown, Orangeburg, and what's not in here is Richland, and we have some applications from Rock Hill. So we really are expanding to make sure the needs of all South Carolinians, or all entrepreneurs and small business owners in South Carolina, are met. We're proud of who we lend to. I said that we are mission-based lenders. That means that we aim to serve those that have been traditionally unserved. We're here for minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and other disadvantaged businesses. So you can see in 2020, we made sure, in 2020 and 2021, we made sure that our business development actions were very focused and very intentional. Recently, and I say recently, about 10 months ago, we hired our first business development officer. Jerry Jenkins is on this line, and if you need Jerry, we'll give you his contact information. But he's out in the community making sure that the people that need our services know that we're there for them. You can see that, you know, a third of our portfolio is in food and beverage, a third is in community services, a little bit of retail, health and wellness. And guys, we don't have a typical client. When someone says, you know, what does your typical client look like? We do loans from $1,000 to $500,000. There is no typical loan size. On average, it's around $50,000. No real industry. You can see everything from an oyster farm to a restaurant to lawn service. How we are able to make these loans is we borrow funds and then we re-lend those funds back out. And so here's some of the partners that we have. We do have a couple of area specific programs, one with the city of Charleston, one with the city of Goose Creek, one with a neighborhood in the Low Country called Lampsey. And those are the 7 neighborhoods in North Charleston that were impacted by the new port that's going in. And so we have some special funds in those neighborhoods up to $25,000, but we can combine it with other loan funds. But the caveat is if you have a business, you get one of these loans, you hire someone in those neighborhoods, up to 25% of that loan is forgivable. So that's a program that we're really proud of. The secret in our sauce, if you will, is that we support our borrowers after the loans are made. So we have a full-time employee who is our director of client experience and success. And it's really to make sure that our small businesses have the support they need to successfully run their business. So we have consultants in bookkeeping and social media. We even have food and beverage consultants because so much of our portfolio is there, some small business generalists, and then we have our own kind of networking events or lunch and learn things that we make sure if it's an HR problem, if it's a landlord problem, that we have the resources to support our clients. We work closely with the folks that are on the call today, with the Women's Business Center. I do want to mention, Anthony, there's a new one that's recently opened in North Charleston. So now South Carolina has 3 women's business centers, and we're so excited about that. The Small Business Development Center, SCORES, all of these folks. The only thing our clients have in common is they couldn't get bank loans, or they couldn't fully get bank loans. Say you have a project that's $50,000 and your bank is willing to give you a $10,000 loan. We may be able to go in and partner with that bank loan to make sure that you're fully funded and you have the resources that your business needs to thrive. You can find our application and its checklist on our website, which is climbfund.org, and a lot of information, including a workshop on how we underwrite. Because we really want to make sure that it makes sense for the Climb Fund and it makes sense to the applicant, that they're ready to borrow capital. And if they're not ready, then we'll work with you to make sure that we can get you to an approval. We're really slow to decline. We will work with you for months and months until you're ready to actually have that capital, grow that business, and then of course, repay it. This is our application checklist, and it starts with, have you been declined by a traditional financial institution? And I want to stress that that's not a formal declination letter where they've pulled your credit and they give you this government regulated form. Not at all. This is small business. So all we really need is an email from your bank, that small business lender, saying, hey, can you help our client? We can't do this right now, but would love for you to take a look at it. We do have an open hour every Tuesday at 10 o'clock that you can jump on the line and say, hey, I'm looking at your application and I don't understand this, or what do you think about this idea? And there will be a live member of the Climb Fund's lending team on the line, it's on a Teams meeting that's ready to answer your questions. So you can jump off and jump on and then jump back off anytime between 10 and 11 on Tuesday mornings. And then we do have that workshop recorded on YouTube that explains how we underwrite, what we need in an application package, and what we want to see in your business plan. We have a special new employee at the Climb Fund. It's our client intake coordinator, meaning that you don't have to have your first impression with a lender. So you get to talk with the intake coordinator that makes sure that all of the pieces from the checklist are there in your package before it goes to lending. So make sure that the package is ready, that you are ready then to talk to a lender. And I'm so super excited to say that we have that available in both English, of course, but also in Spanish. So we have 3 bilingual employees at the Climb Fund So if you're more comfortable speaking in Spanish, we're absolutely happy to accommodate that. We have our application in Spanish as well. Here's some friendly faces that you'll see. The intake coordinator is on maternity leave right now. So Natasha is spending time with her little one. So Amanda Stone, our project coordinator, is filling in her role as a intake coordinator. And then we have Miss Grace Butler, who is our loan officer at the time. She works with Jerry and with Amanda, making sure that the client is ready for underwriting and then ready for loan presentation. We do have another loan officer position open. So if you know of someone that not only has some underwriting background in business lending, but also is mission central, feel free to send them our way. And if the word business plan scares you, it shouldn't. When we look at business plans, all we want to see is that we have a business owner that knows how to run a profitable business and understands the environment they want to work in. But we do work with our partners at SCORE, Small Business Development Center, and Women's Business Centers to help get that business plan ready. Because I love telling this story. I had a landscaper that was, he was mowing people's lawns for a living, fell into a commercial opportunity. His business plan was 2 pages with, pencil and notebook paper, but he demonstrated that he understood what he was doing. And come on, this is not rocket science. So we took it. The loan was successful, paid off early, and he's still running 2 crews today. And that was 10 years ago. Really proud of him. One of the things that always confuses people in our application is something that you may have never seen before, a personal financial statement. So Amanda can help you walk through this, but while it looks a little confusing, it's basically listing everything that you have and then everything that you owe and what's left over at the end of the day. If that is a negative number because maybe you just bought your home or you don't own real estate as an asset, do not let that stop you from an application. It is what it is. And the other form that's in our application that looks really confusing when it's blank is what your project is, your total project, and then how much you're asking for a loan and what you want to do with those loan proceeds. So what we want to see is how much you're putting into the project, so don't sell yourself short. You may have given the business some equipment, your cell phone, your computer, all those kinds of things. Just give yourself credit where credit is due, but then very, very, very clear with telling us how you want to use the loans. That helps us in so many ways by knowing what loan fund we want to use, but also making sure that you're asking for the right loan amount. Sometimes people try to shorten the loan amount because they're afraid they won't qualify for more. If you apply for $50,000, but you really needed $25,000 to make sure that that business has the capital it needs to grow, we need to ask for $75,000. So let the intake coordinator and let the loan officer help you determine, and your support system, SBDC, SCORE, Women's Business Center, help you determine what is really the right number. You don't want to borrow too much, but you never want to borrow too little. And then we do want to see the financial statements because, lending is all about risk, right? So we want to make sure that you're able to repay this loan. So we want to see a balance sheet and a profit and loss sheet. And if you're a startup, these are just projected. And we want to know how you based your projections, what research you did, if you had a mentor, if you had consulted anyone. And then collateral, this is always kind of a sticky point, but I will tell you, if your collateral page is blank on the application, it won't be accepted. There has to be some kind of collateral for every business loan, and usually it's the business's assets. The business is going to have some asset. We just talked about computers and cell phones, but it could have some machinery, small wares for restaurants. I mean, just list everything that you think the business has. What we want to see is that the business owner is as much at risk as they're asking the Climb Fund to be. So if you're all in, we will try to be all in as well. And this is our contact information, guys. This was just a really high level look at how we process applications, how we get people to funding. If you have more information, you can reach us at info@kleinfund.org, or I am Cindy with an I, CINDI at kleinfund.org. Jerry Jenkins that's on the call, he would be JERRY at kleinfund.org, or simply just go to our website and there's links to all of this information and all of our contact information.
Thank you very much, Cindy. I know people are going to be blowing your phone up. That is exciting. And in a few minutes, when we come back around to the Q&A session, I'm going to ask you to describe a business. A lot of people aren't inspired. We want you to talk because they're fearful, right? They're scared. They don't think this is for them. Owning a business, they want to do it. They have these talents. They have these crafts. They have these skills. But being a business owner, for me, I'd like you to give them an example of someone who was like that, that you took from A to Z. So we'll come back to that in a second. Right now, I want to introduce Mr. John Gathers, who's with Small Business Development Center. He's a consultant for them, working with them. I'm excited to hear about what they're doing. And then we'll jump into a good discussion. He had my ears burning earlier, talking about some of the opportunities coming up in the state. So John, tell us about your program and some of the work that you do with your center.
So good morning. I appreciate the introduction. I'm John Gathers, and I am in the Columbia, or what they call the USC region of the SBDC. And I am, really the COVID go-to guy. That's kind of why they hired me on here, to facilitate with help with some of the SBA disaster relief programs. So PPP forgiveness, PPP was exhausted at the time when I started. Restaurant revitalization was on its way out, and then the what they call the shuttered venue loan was still very popular at the time. So I was kind of working people through the nuances of that. And I come from a small business and lending background. I owned a small business for 15 years and actually did small business lending for upper Main Street and lower middle market companies. So it was, it's a labor of love. I love what I do. I love helping small businesses, and the SBDC is an incredible organization. They're serious, they're focused, and they want to make sure that they're a resource for small businesses, not just during the COVID-19 times, but, carrying forward. So today I'm actually just presenting on the economic disaster relief loan, which is the EIDL loan. So trying to pull it up for you guys. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to walk you guys through this program pretty quickly here, because it's not a difficult program to qualify for. So with this one, it's basically a disaster relief loan. So you have run as a traditional normal business during 2019, and in 2020 you took a hit. That is the precursor for qualifying for this loan. You want to make sure that you can show at least a 30% loss in revenue. Doesn't have to be profit, just has to be sales, between 2020 and 2019. Now, for some businesses, because of the seasonality of their industry, you have to do it a different way. And we can definitely talk about that more in depth a little later on. There's some people that would have not normally qualified under the SBA standard that we were still able to get a successful loan application process and funded. So max loan size is $2 million for any one business. If you're a serial entrepreneur, you can use your EIN to specify the different businesses, and you can get $2 million per business as a maximum loan. It's to pay for the financial obligations and operating expenses. So anything you have associated with the daily course of running your business, anything that is, hey, look, my roof caved in, I had some issues with my parking lot. Those are not really considered, the course of day to day. So you don't want to fund those with this money. But if you did, need a piece of equipment, or you were looking for pieces of equipment to help your business grow, this money can be used for that. It's not to refinance debt. And it's really weird the way they word this. So you can't say you're refinancing it, but if you had a 30-year mortgage and they gave you enough money to pay off the 30-year mortgage with your commercial lender, you can pay off that mortgage. You can't say you're refinancing. You just have to say I'm paying off my debt obligation. So it's essentially the same thing, but hey, you can't pay off any non government loans. So excuse me for that wording. If it's something that the SBA has issued towards you, so if you have a 7A, a 504 loan, any of the SBA products, you can't pay those off with the EIDL loan. So one of the things I encourage my clients to do, since I'm also consulting for the SBDC now, is make sure they have a plan for the funds. This is not a grant. A lot of people are thinking this is going to be forgiven. A lot of people are confusing this with PPP, and we try to rectify that right on the front end because you are going to have to repay this. You can defer the loan for up to 2 years now. But we also, run a quick AM to show you exactly what your payment is going to be at the end of the 2 years, just to make sure it doesn't, increase to a point where you can't pay it. We also want people to think about how they track the spending of this loan. So we encourage people to open up a separate bank account and transfer this money into that bank account so they can track it dollar for dollar a lot more succinctly and try to keep everything in that one box, because they are going to audit this. We're almost 100% convinced at some point they're going to ask you, what did you do with this money? And are you willing to sign a personal guarantee? So those are some of the things I try to make sure my clients understand before we, kind of push them into this product. So you qualify if you're less than 500 employees, agricultural co-ops, small aquaculture co-ops and businesses are qualifying. Nonprofits who are private nonprofits. So if you are a group that helps your local community out, you actually qualify for this. If you are a group that is kind of an offshoot of, Toys for Tots, something like that, then you don't qualify. Independently owned businesses and franchisees can qualify for this money as long as they're on the SBA approved franchisees list. And sole props can actually qualify for this. So if you're the lifestyle business and you can show significant damage to your business, you can still qualify. So the people who don't qualify are startup businesses, gambling, any illegal activities, lenders, speculative businesses like you're a real estate investor, pawn shops, real estate developers, religious organizations. So this is not for churches nor a shuttered venue, unfortunately. Government-owned entities and concerns that sell or service products of a sexual nature. They do not qualify for this loan. The details, real short, it's very easy. Minimum credit score 570. If you don't meet that, that's fine. Still apply. For loans that are under $25,000, there's no collateral requirements with those loans. If you are 25, if you're over 25, you're going to have to pledge your business assets blanket. It's kind of a blanket loan. So the SBA will not decline you if you do not meet the collateral requirements, but you definitely want to make sure that you have some business assets before you try to get a $500,000 loan. I mean, they're gonna look for some way to get their money back in case you default. So it's not a grant. It's not forgivable. If you're a small business, the interest rate on this is 3.75 over 30 years. If you are a nonprofit, it's 2.75 over 30 years, and there's no prepayment penalty, but you must show an impact from the pandemic. Now, what they have here is a lot of small businesses who are taking this money are buying equipment. I can tell you right now, you want to make sure you pay back that loan according to what the useful life of that asset is. So if it would take you 6 years to pay off that truck, do not take 30 years to pay off a 6-year vehicle. Whatever the traditional loan would have been, give yourself, the same amount of time to pay it off. Otherwise, you're paying way more interest than you need to be. So on the application process, it's pretty simple. This is the link. You're going to click on this link, ensure that everything corresponds with your tax returns. The SBA is actually facilitating this. So if there's any third party, we've had a lot of people be victims of fraud. There's no bank or, foreign group or blue skies or anybody that is coming along on an online basis and processing these loans. Don't go through them. Go directly through the SBA. And it's going to take about 5 days after you're approved to get your funds dispersed. And the repayment, again, can be deferred over 2 years, but the interest still accrues. So if you are denied, just going forward, if you're denied, we can help you out. I'm going to get to that. But a lot of people who've already applied for this loan have received initial denials just for, incorrect information. The SBA has been really triggering and kind of going a little overboard with some of the fraud protections on this. So we can kind of help you navigate that. For people who received the initial loan in 2020, which was about $2,500 for some people, $1,000 for others, they're allowing you to do an increase request. So you can actually take that same loan that you received and pull it out to the maximum allowable amount. And that has been helping a lot of small businesses during the time of the pandemic. Again, the denials is just unverifiable information, unsubstantiated economic injury, poor credit history. All those can be explained very simply with letters of reconsideration, and I help clients write those all the time. And again, a letter of reconsideration is basically reaching out to the SBA or clarifying what they meant, because the federal government doesn't have a habit of being very clear sometimes. So we call them and directly get the information from the horse's mouth. We write those letters of explanation with you so we know that they're correct. When we need to send in additional information, it's documents only, no cover letters, none of the information that your CPA firm may be providing for you, just the tax returns, just the Schedule Cs. So we add additional information via the EIDL portal is the quickest, most succinct way to get that done. If you can't do it through the portal, then we encourage you to send it in via email through PDC Recons. And that is the direct SBA intake. And it does take a while if you're doing it via email. So if you have any more questions, or if you just want to know more about loan processes, or if you're a small business that just needs some small business assistance, the SBDC is wide open for you. Great resource. And I encourage that more small businesses really start to use it before they make financial decisions, because a lot of businesses are spending this money at a rapid pace and they don't realize that we're not out of the pandemic just yet. So this is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me at any time you need. And again, we're here for you. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And hey, can't wait to answer some questions.
All right. Well, our first question, and I'm going to throw this out to the whole panel, get everybody's perspective on this one. John, you mentioned it. We're not out of the pandemic yet. Businesses have had to reimagine themselves, readjust, repurpose themselves. Where are we right now as it relates to the environment for starting a business? If I'm if I'm an entrepreneur or a potential entrepreneur, what would you say to me about this environment? Me going into this environment, this COVID environment that we're not out of. What advice would you give me?
Proceed with caution. Do not make long-term financial obligations for a short-term market condition. So for people who are seeing that this is a great time to get into business, God, if you have a staffing agency, you'll do gangbusters right now, startup. But it's a bubble. At some point, this market is going to level off. Things are going to go kind of back to normal or normal-ish. And if you're making a huge purchase on the auspices that this market is going to last for the next 10 years, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. You're going to be upside down. So proceed with caution, run as lean as you possibly can. Let the volume of work force you to scale. Don't just scale because you think it's a great idea, because you have some free money because of PPP or EIDL. And think about the customer. If I could explain business very easily to startup owners, the only thing I tell you, look, your customer's problems is your business. When you think about what your business is at its core, it's your customer's problem. Because if you can't solve the problem for the customer, you're not in business. And far too many startups go, I got a great idea, and they never peg it to the customer need, want, or desire. So during this market, I think those are the things that I'm encouraging people to do. Just be cautious. Don't make long-term obligations for short-term bubbles, and think about your customer need and focus on the customer need. I think you'll be okay. Oh, and if you're suffering from capacity issues, try to give your customer a window. Your customer wants it done in 30 days. Hey, look, due to the current market, there's no way I can do it in 30 days, but I can do it in 3 months. So you make it, shop it around, see what you think, but don't necessarily turn away business. Give the customer a true timeline of when you can get to them, and see if that still may, equal an engagement or potential opportunity for business. So, sorry, I'm a little, winded about that, but I'm very passionate about business. I love it. So.
I love it. That was great advice. Great advice. Run lean. Run lean. I like it. All right, Cindy, what advice would you have?
Hey, John, so well said. I wish I had videoed that and just every single applicant we came in, just listen to that, right? So, in the business plan, we've always asked people to address disasters. And typically we're talking, in the past, it was what would you do if there's a hurricane and you're shut down for 4 or 5 days, or an earthquake or a fire, those kinds of things. But now we really need to address long-term disasters like pandemics and how they would address those issues. So it really is, I think, never has been so apparent that working capital is small businesses' best friend. And without the appropriate amount of working capital to keep that business in business for, say, 3 months without ever having to open the door is so important. So when they have that amount of capital, it's not to go out and run and purchase a large piece of equipment because they think that they're doing so well. That profitability isn't money that needs to be spent. It needs to be reinvested back into their business, right? So we don't celebrate by buying cars or going on big vacations. We reinvest it back into that business until it gets to a level where it's self-sustaining, and to a level that it has those cash reserves of 3 to 6 months that you can keep your employees employed, and whether or not your doors are open, you can pay that rent and you can do those things. And then the second thing that I'll add there is if a small business can get into a position where it can own its building. So the ownership of the business that it operates has become so important that they don't have to deal with the landlord. They don't have that back rent, that they actually have invested in themselves in owning that building. And I think that's what we're trying to stress with a lot of businesses now.
Outstanding. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you. Anthony, what would you do to inspire and encourage and advise a new entrepreneur?
Great question, Quadro. What we encourage, what we've seen through our research, is that a lot of our small minority businesses are really not connected to the community in which they're doing business or trying to establish themselves. And so one of the things, and I'll be totally transparent, we encourage them to stay connected to your local chamber of commerce. Know the resources that are available in your community in which you live, work, and play. I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing what's available and how to get access to it, and really knowing that you're not in this alone, that there are other resources out here to help you. Contact those resources, get in contact with us. And I like to say, I like to use the example of a informational chain link. A lot of times I encourage business owners to get involved or be connected to that informational chain link, because as I always say, if you're seeing information just on TV, you're probably too late. You're probably too late. If you're hearing it and seeing it on TV, then you're too late. And know that there are resources such as CMA, we're here, SBDC, and others that are out there in the community. Just for example, we are in our agency, there are only 18 of us. There are only 18 staff members here, but we serve the state of South Carolina. So just really knowing Quadros, what I encourage business owners that there are other resources out there. Get connected and stay resilient. I'm a business owner myself, and I had to weather the storm, through the pandemic as well. So just stay connected and know that there are resources out there to help.
Outstanding. Well, I'd like to ask a general question about your perspective. What's the forecast looking like for small business in South Carolina? The pandemic is kind of normalized, if you want to use that term. We're kind of learning how to live through this pandemic and do business and et cetera during this pandemic. But one of the industries, the tourism industry, of which we're gathered here today with this conference, has really seen an uptick in business. People were dying to get back out. What about the rest of the economy? What are you seeing as it relates to the comeback? Anthony, you want to start us off?
Yeah. I take a swing at that. I know yesterday the South Carolina Commerce just released the economic outlook, and I started to pull that up as you were talking to try to give you the data on that. I don't have the data on that right now that I can give you exactly for that. But I think with any business, we are seeing some upticks in certain areas, and we are seeing some positions that are hard to fill, such as in the restaurant industry. And we're seeing the data that was released yesterday indicated that a lot of restaurants have closed and are not reopening. So it really varies. It really varies. And I'm going to take a second and actually pull that data up real quick for you so I can share it with the audience.
All right.
John or Cindy, any insight on how our economy is looking?
I always want to knock on wood when I give a rosy report, but the pandemic really wore down on people, right? And so people really want to travel again. South Carolina is fortunate, the Charleston area even more fortunate, to have a reputation of being easy to travel to and then really easy to have fun at, right? And I think, there's so many things that happened in the pandemic, and then with the Black Lives Matter movement that really has let our Black-owned businesses shine. So there's so much support. There's so many resources that are targeted to minority-owned business. This is the time. Like it can't be any sunnier than it is right now. We know that this pandemic will end. The adventurous people are already here. I work in downtown Charleston. I see the Thursday evening kind of traffic build of all the out-of-state flights, even now that school has started. Because kids can do remote now. So families are traveling with kids year round. So I don't want to be all rainbows and sunshine, but that's how I feel about the situation. That it really is a good economy right now, but more people want to get out and they want to focus on small business, not franchises, and they particularly want to focus on Black-owned businesses. Now, true restaurants have closed. A lot of people took that as an opportunity of, I take a break. You know what? It's time for me to retire. So some of our greatest restaurants downtown, they didn't really close because of the pandemic, but the pandemic showed them that they could, right? And so it's something to think about. When a business shutters, why did it shutter? And did it just use that opportunity? And a lot of them did. They were able to take a breath and find out what's important for them in life, and it could be retirement. But as many has shuttered, there's new ones popping up every day. And I know that because I've funded a good amount of them. So there's still a lot of optimism that's in our market.
Beautiful. Awesome. John, what are you thinking?
I am thinking I want to hear Anthony before I talk, so I don't look
All right.
crazy. I just want to see what.
Anthony, you got those numbers for us?
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'll share it with you through email. That way, everyone will have it, and we'll see what the what state commerce says. I'll share that.
Outstanding. I think I want to close out with
Real quick though, Mr. Campbell, I want to say something because I don't want to necessarily go against a funding partner and what Commerce says, but I just market outlook in South Carolina for me is in three sectors. Three, just real quick. One, the businesses who were never affected during the pandemic because they were deemed essential, the businesses who had to shut down during the pandemic, and the guys who were probably going out of business before the pandemic. When I look at those three tranches, the guys who didn't slow down or shut down are the guys that are calling you saying, "Hey, I can't find people." They were able to maintain cash flows, and some of them got PPP money on top of that. So they've got a big, healthy balance sheet, more demand than they've ever seen in their lives, and not enough people. And that's a great situation to be in. It's wonderful, and they're probably driving the bulk of that positive economic outlook just from a macro standpoint. And then you have that subset of people who are restaurant owners, who are hotel owners, who are in the port service businesses around Carnival Cruise Line. I had a customer who was actually providing syn diesel to Carnival Cruise, who had to shut down. Imagine what that did to them. If you were in the oil and gas industry, period, you took a major hit during the pandemic. So when you look at those industries, those are the guys who are, that's where my heart goes. That's where my time is kind of allocated because they did nothing wrong. They were guys who were running multi-million-dollar businesses and didn't borrow a dime. I mean, just savvy business owners, hard workers, and those are the guys that kind of keep me up at night. And then last but not least, there are people who are just, your business was failing. Let's just call a spade a spade. There was no way you were going to survive 2020 anyway. And now the pandemic has either, given them a chance to pivot, or the pandemic has given them a chance to, like, Cindy said earlier, okay, let me take a break. Hey, I basically spent $250,000 to make $50,000 a year. I should just go get a $50,000 a year job, call it a day. So when I look at those three tranches in South Carolina, they end up being transportation, never slowed down. For a lot of construction guys who are hopefully doing, really good long construction projects, never slowed down. If you were anywhere in the vendor industry and you had an online business, buddy, you were doing gangbusters. So when I look at those three in South Carolina, we have a really good amount of those people who are clients of ours who are trying to scale right now. And again, we're telling them to scale with caution. The guys who were hit by the pandemic hard, we're trying to pivot to idle loans. And if they're looking at doing different verticals to make a real good business pivot, Climb Fund has actually gotten some of my business. We got some loans in underwriting with you guys right now. And last but not least, the guys who are going out of business, I just, I tell them straight, hey, look, take this time, spend 2 years, a year just with your family, take a breather and figure out if entrepreneurship is something you want to do again, or do you just, want to go get a job? Because a lot of people thought entrepreneurship was a high paying job and didn't realize what it truly was. So that's kind of my
All right. Outstanding. Anthony, have you so you said you're going to send it to us by email, and then we'll get it out to everybody.
Yes, sir. I just shared it with you. And one thing, real quick, Mr. Campbell, I want to just let the record show I am optimistic and we are strong. But I'm a data-driven guy. And we look at the numbers. But in all seriousness, our economy is strong in South Carolina. It is strong, and I think our job here at the commission, we have to look at the numbers. We have to do a deep dive at that and really dig down when it comes, to our business owners to provide that research. That's what we do. We're research and a resource to those businesses. And so that's one of the biggest things that we look at, because a lot of times we're getting requests from all over the state, from different agencies, public and private, regarding our data regarding the research to see what it says about small businesses. So I apologize to my panelists out there, but we really look at the numbers because research is such a big part and vital to what we do as it comes to our office here at the commission. But the economy is strong, and I did send that information to you, Quandro, and I think
Right.
John, I sent it to you as well. So I'm going to send it to you as well too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that is key. But I'm grateful that the outlook is rosy. There's opportunity out here. Cindy, I asked you earlier to think about that one business that from A to Z that could inspire people. Somebody who doesn't fit your typical prototype entrepreneur.
Thank you for that. And, like I said, we really don't have a particular, and there are so many different stories that I could talk for hours. But I went back to the slides, the pictures that we have, and they all have a story. But the very first one, because this is centered around tourism, is Big Daddy's Pork Skins. This is a guy on Johns Island specializing in pork rinds, and oh my goodness, are they good? And this is his passion, his lifeblood. And he does this by going to festivals and farmers markets and things like that. And he had finally gotten comfortable enough in 2019 to realize that he needed to be in two places at one time. And he has a son that's kind of taking over the business. So he received a loan in late January, early February 2020 to be able to do two farmers markets at the same time. Obviously, there were no farmers markets in 2020. And so here he was with a loan that he had really no resources to repay. When the pandemic happened, I'm so proud of our staff, and we were all hands on deck. And we found out about every grant, every EIDL loan, all of the opportunities that were in our community. And we're really excited to say we found over $75,000 worth of grants for Big Daddy's. And so not only now is he back at the festival selling his pork skins, guys, you got to find him, I promise. But also his business is secure, and he has those capital reserves that he didn't have in the past. So I can mention that. And I also want to, there's a couple of examples of guys, people thought they had a good idea and they were ready to move forward. And our staff was able to say, not yet, you haven't thought about this, this, and this. One case was a couple that wanted to start a music school. And I'm really pleased to say they're 5 years into it, but spent 14 months with us getting a loan to approval. They just paid us off because another bank helped them buy their location. So now they are their own landlord. And that was in a really short period of time, but spent 14 months with us making sure that we could get them to an approval to even open the school. The same thing with Verde, the salad stores. I mean, we worked with them, first-time business owners, first-time business borrowers, really had never managed a restaurant before, but had gotten a consultant to really help them. Guys, they have 5 locations now, 1 in Charlotte. So, I mean, I see franchise on their horizon. So that's just a couple. And guys, we closed 73 loans this fiscal year. Today is our New Year's Day. It's October 1, so it's the beginning of our fiscal year. So we just closed out 2021 with 73 loans. So these stories will keep happening. And what I'm proud most of is the support system that a Klein Fund has, those consultants and those people that hold your hand, but also take your feet and put them back on the ground and make sure that your passion project, your business, is also a profitable business. And we'll work with you to get you to the heights that you want to go.
Outstanding. I hear that. So you hear to everybody out there, you can do this. There are opportunities, but when you do it, you need to be smart. You need to be guided. You need to go out here and find the resources so that you can plan for your business. Think through it. Have people that have been here, done that, actually sit down with you to help you process all of that. I'm excited. The resources are here, guys. I'm going to go around the table and just actually close us out with some final words, and I just want to, then I'll finish up by thanking you all. So when we start with John, then we'll go to Anthony, and then we'll close out with Cindy. Just some final words.
Thank you for having me, first of all. SBDC, the organization that I'm representing, is a huge resource that is statewide. So first of all, I don't think I said that when I began my presentation. We service the entire state of South Carolina. We are a partner for the SBA. However, we are not the SBA. And trust me, that's better for small businesses than most people think. A lot of people think that we're some type of substandard organization because we're not the SBA. If you truly knew what the SBA did, you'd be like, okay, thank God for the SBDC. Secondary to that, and that's not a knock on the SBA, it's just that we service smaller businesses. The SBA kind of, you got to be a little bit up tier to catch the SBA's attention. Number two, we are a broad range service. So we don't just service startups. We don't just service, ongoing concerns. We service the spectrum. You can be a mature business. You can be 10 million. You can be 10 million in debt. And we'll still, provide services for you at no cost. And I think last but not least, just a way to close out, I worked in a lot of different organizations, brokerage firms, finance companies, small businesses before I started my business. The idea that you have to go it alone, and the idea that you have to kind of suffer in silence is hogwash. Like, don't do that. A lot of times when a business owner is facing their, more dire moments, it's the loneliest feeling on the planet Earth. Your friends can't relate, your family can't relate if they're not business owners, and you're just out there on this island. Please feel free to pick up the phone and call people like Cindy. Call people like Anthony. Please call people like the SBDC and just lend them your ear, and you'll be surprised how sometimes just, business owner to business consultant therapy is what you needed. It helps you, re-energize, helps you retool, helps you refocus, gives you a couple of key points to work on, and you can get back out there. So, don't go it alone. Don't feel like you have to go it alone, and don't feel like you are alone, because there are resources, to Anthony and Cindy's points, that people are just not tapping into. And if we made you aware and you still don't do it, it's your fault. But if you never knew, it's my fault. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Anthony?
Yes, sir. I actually want to end the way I began, in reference to CMA. We're here to service and serve the minority community. And as I mentioned, our 4 program areas, populations, which there are others that we focus on, are the African American, Native American, Hispanic and Latino, and the Asian American. We know that, this is Hispanic Heritage Month. We're here to serve the state of South Carolina, Mr. Campbell. And it's a network, it's a team. We do not have all the answers. Okay, that's why partnership is so vital in what we do with the SBDC. And I mentioned on the call earlier to Ms. Roark, getting the Climb Fund, getting that information out there to small and minority businesses, because it's just so vital. One thing I noticed is that businesses perish for the lack of information, not necessarily knowledge, but it's lack of information. So please tap into the resources. We're here to serve you. We're here to be advocates for you. And trust me, we're advocating on a daily basis at the state level with legislation. We're advocating because that's what we do for small and minority businesses. Please reach out to us. Our information is on the website. Please Google us, and we're here to help. And Mr. Campbell, I want to thank you for having me on this panel on today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Cindy.
And I echo, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this panel. We are a nonprofit, which means our marketing budget is this big. So any chance that we can get someone to know that we're here to support our entrepreneurs and our small businesses in South Carolina. So tell your friends that you heard this. And again, I am humbled and honored to lead this organization. And I think every employee here, all 9 of us, feel the same way, that we're really humbled to be able to be in the ride of these entrepreneurs that have this idea, that put themselves out there at risk, borrow funds for this, but then end up hiring folks. Part of, someone else said in the pandemic, I'm gonna leave you with one more story. In 2007, we made a loan to a couple of guys that wanted to open a sign shop. And they fell into maritime, making caution signs for vessels, which led them to the cruise ship. So with a small loan from the Klein Fund, they were a major player in designing sets for cruise ships, and we'd helped them a couple of times with buying printers. I think the last printer was a $100,000 piece of machinery to make these signs. I had a conversation with them in late March of 2020 when the cruise industry was shut down, and they were terrified. But they pivoted, and they pivoted by use of mentors. They found other opportunities. And guys, they just now announced that they're making a $4 million investment in Mount Pleasant, building a warehouse really at Wando, and they're hiring 15 new employees. Or no, I have that backwards. They were hiring 51 new employees. So what a success and what a pivot, right? So just be mindful that this is a loan program, and all of our funds must be repaid or expected to be repaid. But we're going to be honest with you and helpful with you, send you to the right resources. I like the SBDCs, like Anthony's group, like the Women's Business Center, someone that can give you that lifeline of getting you to a loan approval when we think it's safe for you to do so you'll be successful. And the lender office hour every Tuesday, 10 to 11. The link is on our website.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Guys, we're going to be publishing on our website all of your information, all of your links. If you guys have any PDFs you'd like us to put on there, or just, we can get your information, a nice bio, etc., and make sure that our audience knows exactly how to get in touch with you. This has been exciting. Thank you for this information. Again, if we're going to really empower our communities to grow and to develop, it's going to be through economic empowerment and providing access to capital, providing people with resources as far as technical assistance is critical in moving them to that next step. Thank you guys very much, and hopefully I get to see you again next year. Last comment, John.
Just real quick, because I know we talked about this, and I got to put it out there before.
Yes, put it out there, brother. Put it out there, because there's a lot of opportunities out here that we need to get ready for. Yes, sir.
3 major things before people forget. Port Authority is doing a huge program right now for new vendors, and it's not through our office, but we help facilitate some of the education, some of the training with the constraints and shipping. There's going to be some huge opportunities in the port, and for some reasons people don't know, Charleston is the 8th largest port in the country. This is a very active port. There are billions and billions of dollars to be made tapping into that resource. Secondly, we're going to the highway construction with DOT, $3 billion project going on right here in the backyard of Columbia, a 10% DBE goal. My math's correct. That's $300 million that needs to be spent with local South Carolinians in the DBE program. So please tap into that. Last but not least, the Department of Commerce for the state has 2 major announcements. One I really love is E&J Mallow. So a lot of people in South Carolina drink E&J, but they don't necessarily tap into their supply chain. E&J is coming to Chester, and they have a multi-million-dollar build out that's going to be completed in 2022, and they're looking for local vendors. So again, this is just the dovetail off Anthony. It really is. There are just too many resources, and there's so much access right here in the state. Please tap into these 3 different opportunities and stay abreast of what's going on, because if you are a startup, to Cindy's point, if you're looking at how to pivot, these opportunities may be the opportunities to save your business.
Outstanding. Thank you. Well, on that note, brother, I am going to say sayonara. Thank you guys very much. It's been a beautiful time. I'll see you guys soon. Hello, welcome, Matt. Pronounce your name for me, Matt. Last name.
Eford.
Eford. All right. Well, thank you, Matt Eford, from City of Greenville's Budget and Finance Department. Today, this panel, well, we were expected to be joined by Mrs. Anita Prather Singleton, who is on the ATAX committee. Who's on the ATAX committee in Beaufort County, and she's going to give us perspective as a ATAX committee member, and also someone who has actually been through the process, as she is a person who provides cultural arts entertainment for the tourism sector down in the Low Country. Matt, on the other hand, is going to give us a perspective from an administrator side, what he's looking at as it relates to criteria in their programming with the ATAX program. So first, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what your role is with the City of Greenville.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate the invitation today. It's a great day here in that Greenville, and I'm happy to be with you all today and talk about our accommodations tax program and some of our other tourism-related programs. Just a quick introduction. I'm the director of the Office of Management and Budget here in the City of Greenville. I serve as the organization's chief financial officer, so responsible for budget, accounting, purchasing, revenue, grants, and risk management. I've been with the city for about 8 years, and prior to that, I worked in North Carolina and Florida in similar roles. So that's my background.
Thank you, Matt. Well, it looks like we do have Miss Prather Singleton is about to join us in a second. There she is. Pearly Sue. How are you doing, my dear?
I can't hear nobody.
Can't hear? Can you hear us now? You can hear me now?
Hmm?
Can you hear me now? She can't hear us. Okay, they're going to work that out. We're going to go ahead and get started, Matt. For everyone who doesn't know, the tax accommodation program, it really is funded from the hotel rooms that are rented out from in various municipalities around the state. There is a tax added onto each room. That money is sent to the state. They collect that money and then they send it back. It's used for general fund. A portion of that money is given out to community-based organizations that have cultural-related or tourism-related programming. And so today we're going to learn exactly what that program entails, how cities see it, and how people can access those programs. One of the things we find is that African American organizations. I'll just give you one organization, the City of Charleston, and then also the County of Charleston. Less than 1% of their dollars are allocated to African American centered or type programming. And one of the reasons is a lot of people just do not know about it. And if they do know about it, don't know how to access those dollars. And so that is what the purpose of this program is really to give people information that this exists and then how to access those dollars. So Matt, why don't you begin by talking to us about the City of Greenville's program, your criteria and, when do you look at these applications and what goes into that process?
Sure. So the City of Greenville collects tourism revenues from a number of sources. Hospitality tax, which is a 2% tax on prepared meals. We have a local accommodations tax that's a 3% tax on hotel rooms. The state accommodation tax, which is the 2% tax on overnight lodging. and then Sunday alcohol permits. So those are all various sources that are coming from visitors to the community and are reserved for spending on tourism-related expenditures. I'll jump ahead to the state accommodations tax, since that's the program we were just discussing. So in the city of Greenville and around the state, tourism, the taxes generated by state accommodations tax have to be used according to state law, which requires an accommodations tax advisory committee. The committee basic structure is outlined in state law that it has to have representation from the hospitality and lodging industry. In the city of Greenville, that means we have 2 hoteliers, 2 restaurateurs, 1 at-large representative, and then representatives from Visit Greenville SC, which is our destination marketing organization, and the Metropolitan Arts Council, which is an umbrella organization for the arts community in Greenville. So those 7 folks are the advisory committee for us when we review tourism-related spending. So the way the money is divided, the first $25,000 of tourism tax revenues from state accommodations tax plus 5% goes to the city's general fund, and that's to pay for the cost of general upkeep and maintenance. The next 30% goes to a destination marketing organization, which for us is Visit Greenville SC. And then the remaining 65% goes to the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee for recommendations on funding through a competitive grant process. For us, the timeline looks like January, February is when we will send out the grant announcement. We'll do a notice in the Greenville News and the Greenville Journal and through our purchasing outreach programs. And then in March, April timeframe, the committee meets to review the applications. And the biggest criteria they look for, number 1 is heads and beds. So they look at a generation of additional tax revenues through overnight guests. They look at quality and diversity of programming. So we've been given a directive by City Council the last few years to increase our offerings of smaller startup type events, and less reliance on the large traditional events that we have, but also a diversity of both programming and audiences. And so the ATAX Advisory Committee the last few years has taken a special interest in funding new events and those that present a different viewpoint than our larger events like Artisphere and Euphoria. So, for example, in the last few years, we've added funding to Upstate International Salsa at Sunset, which is an event that does Latino dancing here in one of our public forums in Greenville. In the last few years, we've added Glow Lyric Theater, which is a volunteer-based opera organization here in the city of Greenville that performs, as well as several other smaller events. Miss Collegiate USA was one that was funded for the first time this past year. There was a Wits End Poetry Slam that was funded for the first time this last year. So those are smaller type events compared to Fall for Greenville, Euphoria, Artisphere, if you're familiar with our traditional program. So that's the basic background. Once the committee makes recommendations on funding, that goes to Greenville City Council as part of our annual budget process. And so that's usually in the May timeframe. And so we'll be accepting applications in early February 2022 for events that happen between June of 22 and July of 23. We do accept off-cycle applications. We have a page on our city website, greenvillesc.gov. If you search for tourism fund, you can find the application and any of the policies that go behind that, timeline for off-cycle applications, information on the committee members and the review process, eligible expenses, and other policies. So that's how you find the information. That's how you get access to our tourism fund.
Hey, thank you, Matt. That was some good information. Real quick, you said that the process starts in January. You said January.
Yes.
Are there any other outreach any other outreach that you guys are going to do to get that word out? Is there places that any technical assistance that might be offered to help people to work through the application if they need any help?
Yeah, so when we do the announcement of funding availability, we offer consultations and basically pre-grant conferences. So if folks have questions, if they're new applicants, my staff has their contact information there. And so I have a designated committee liaison. Her name's Christina Junker. She's worked with this committee for over 10 years, and so she knows the process very well. She'll help answer any questions for folks wanting to put together an application as to what requirements the committee is looking for, what kind of information they need to have handy. Our application process is all online, so everything's done through our website, and she can help with that process as well.
What type of projects will not be funded?
So based on the restrictions in state law, it has to be a tourism-related project, first of all. Secondly, the ATAX committee, our ATAX committee, has preferred to fund events or one-time projects rather than investment in capital. So the city has other methods to invest in building and infrastructure, and so they try to promote more events and organizations that build the culture of Greenville that people want to come visit. So in terms of what expenditures are eligible, so marketing and promotion is one that's always eligible. So if you have an event in town that you're wanting to provide more outreach, that funding is available for that. Certain event related expenses are eligible. So one that comes up in Greenville a lot is transportation. Our convention center is not in downtown, but most of our hotels are. So a lot of the events will require ferrying of their guests from downtown to the convention center. That is a reimbursable expense under our tourism funds. We have folks use the funds to pay rental fees at the arena or the convention center. Those are eligible expenses. So basically, it has to be something that is related to the cost of the event or marketing of the event.
That's awesome. Now, the reason why I asked that question is because really all throughout the state, that is pretty much the same, right? Those are the type of expenses that are eligible. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So the state of South Carolina has a set of rules for accommodations tax revenues that are descriptive in nature. So there's basically 8 items that you can fund, but the law says, or other related items thereof. And so those are the type of funding items that will be available across the state. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we have up here your contact information for people who would like to find out information and go through that process and maybe even go through a consultation process. You can reach them right here at greenvillesc.gov. And, or just Google Greenville tax, what we call it ATAX, Accommodation Tax Grant Program. And it will direct you right to this office in this department. Matt, we're going to thank you. And maybe we'll come back with some questions and answers. But right now, I'd like to introduce our next guest, Ms. Singleton Prather, also known as Auntie Pearly Sue. How are you doing, dear? Yeah, take yourself off mute.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Y'all got the most tech challenged person on here. I just want you to know right off. So that's my disclaimer.
It's okay. It's okay. We are glad to have you. I'm Pearly Sue. Mrs. Singleton Prather sits on the Tax Accommodations Committee down in the Low Country, Beaufort area. Ms. Singleton, could you tell us a little bit about your process? Like when do you guys review applications and begin applications? And what are what is a bad application? Matt kind of went through the criteria of what the program is and the process. I would like to talk to you about experiences. What does a bad application look like?
Well, first of all, the ones that is not downloaded that you bring on a piece of notebook paper, that's definitely a bad application. Um, one that doesn't have, I guess, financial records, at least for 2 years in order. That's one thing. Another one that doesn't have clear purpose of what the funds are going to be used for. One of the things I would always, the years that I've been sitting on it, very few applicants get all the money that they ask for. So you kind of need to kind of itemize or group things together that if you don't get everything you need, then you have enough to at least achieve goal A if you can't do goal A through Z, but you can at least do goal A if you get X amount of dollars. So that's that's one of the main things, that sometimes things are too vague and it's not specific things where we can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, if you want to maybe purchase posters and rack cards or whatever for your event, and it costs maybe $3,000 as opposed to $10,000 is the ask, then we may, allocate the funds to at least cover that amount. So that's one of the main things that I've seen over the years. Another thing that I've seen over the years is that if you have a group, another group that you can partner with to do collaboration so that your marketing dollars can go further, that's another, no man is an island is not a good, that concept that I'm going to stand alone and I don't want no other help. That's not really a good application in a sense, because they're always looking for ways that you can either cross market or join with another group to market. Maybe not the same event, but maybe the same cultural type thing. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Absolutely. Leveraging your resources to get a better bang for your buck. I think a big tourism promotion strategy is to partner and do cross promotions. You see, even cross ticket sales. People partner up and those type of pieces. Well, my flip side of that question was, what does a good application look like? And you've identified a couple of things, right? You said showing that you have partnerships, being very specific as to what the money is going to be actually used for. Any other tips for a really good application? What have you seen? Applications that have impressed you in the past, what have they looked like?
Concise. Don't come in with a bunch of paperwork. I would say if you've done this event before, if you have any kind of maybe a flyer or brochure from it that you can, before you get started with your presentation, as you're greeting everybody, to maybe just give them a copy, something quick, not a whole dissertation, but so they can kind of in a picture paints 1,000 words. So then that means you can cut down your verbiage down to maybe 10 words if you have your picture. One of the things I've seen is, if you bring a few people that can kind of support what you're doing, to kind of stand with you, that sometimes gives you a little more leverage. Because then the committee sees that you're not a standalone organization, but there's somebody that can kind of, their presence can kind of validate what you're doing.
Oh yeah, almost like some people bring letters of support to their proposals and things like that. Absolutely. So. I did some good, fabulous stuff. So, what type of impact have you seen the Tax Accommodations Grant Program? And this is for both you and Matt. How has the tax accommodations community really benefit your community as far as growing tourism in your area? and
Well,
just not regular tourism, non-traditional tourism.
right. I think one of the things, one of the drawbacks for me, with sometimes the thinking or the mindset, everybody wants stats and statistics, and that's another thing. If you can have some kind of tourism impact stats that you can put into, how many people you think you've reached with
Heads and beds,
heads and beds and that kind of stuff. And that's good, but sometimes I think it's unfair in a sense, because sometimes things that you create, for example, let's say somebody come into Greenville for some kind of festival, and then they go back to their homes and they spread the word. So you have people that may come, but they may not come at the festival time again, but they may come at another time. And those heads and beds that's directly related to somebody having that experience at that initial festival is not always, tallied toward the organization that initially had sponsored the event. So I think that's one of the drawbacks. If I would say there is a drawback to seeing who qualify, and I don't know how we correct that, but I've seen, sometimes excuse me, I've been dealing with hoarseness and a sore throat, so I apologize. One of the things sometimes, me being on the ATAX board, is I will speak up in reference to organizations that I know that may not have the stats, the formal stats, but I know that the impact of what they've sponsored continues to bring tourists into the area. They may not come in May for the Gullah Festival, or they may not come, in November for Penn Heritage, but they may come another time, and it's because they've had that experience. So I don't know how we correct that, or how we make adjustments for that.
I would agree with that. One of the things that our ATAX committee has tried to focus on, and really City Council discusses when they debate the final funding, is direct heads and beds versus building the culture and quality of life I referenced earlier. And so we've been increasing our investment in smaller scale events that may not generate hotel taxes that evening. But the other things that the committee looks at is, restaurant sales. That's another big revenue source for us. So if you can't demonstrate heads and beds, can you demonstrate restaurant catering sales? If not that, is it something unique in the marketplace that is a new event or a new idea that we don't have currently that would open up our brand to a different audience? And so those are the type of things that our committee looks for, in addition to just the heads and beds numbers.
Yeah, and then another thing people have to take in consideration when we think about tourism, heads and beds, butts and seats at the restaurants or even at the events. But what about people who buy gas when they're here, going to Walmart, Kmart, Walgreens, and all those other things that brings tax dollars into our communities? Again, those things are not considered as well. But so I tell people all the time, when you look at tourism, it's a lot of different streams of revenue that comes in because an event has been sponsored, and so I don't know if that kind of answers the question, but
you have that direct impact and you have that indirect economic impact.
Right. Excuse me.
And it should all be considered. Well, and in regards to we haven't said it directly, but both of you allude to it. Matt talks about how his community began to look at ways to diversify the types of groups and events that they've been funding in the past. Ms. Prather, has Buford taken any any have what kind of strategies has Buford taken to make sure that smaller organizations are identified? I know you're on the panel, and I know you are an advocate. Is there any policies that they put in place to do that?
Not really, because sometimes you have to have people of color on there that will speak up. And it's a lot of times it's not that, a lot of times we pull the race card and we call it racism, but sometimes it's people just not knowing, sometimes you men don't understand some of the things we women are going through. And it's not that that you're against women, it's just that you don't understand. And so you have to have someone who understands the community, who's a part of the community, see the impact not just on the hotels and the restaurants and the tax base, but in the hood, where we get an opportunity to have businesses and support businesses that can actually employ these young people who think that there's nothing in these smaller communities that can offer them for gainful employment, something beyond minimum wages. And tourism can do that. And so, I'll go on a tangent because I am a storyteller, but I'm a holistic, I look at things in a holistic means, how can we leverage tourism against the violence that we have in our community, that spirit of hopelessness and that kind of stuff. And I think ATAX need to look even beyond just heads and beds, but the other effects, because your crime rate affects your tourism. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but anyway, I'm gonna stop with that until you ask another one.
Hey Matt, what made you guys? What drove the desire to diversify your offerings?
So it was feedback from city council members as well as our ATAX committee members that they were saying, we're funding the same large events every year. We need to really, try to stratify our offerings a little more. Not everybody's going to come downtown for a big concert at the arena or a Broadway show at the Peace Center. And so, foot traffic drives retail. We have a major shopping destination in our downtown. So any type of event that brings people here is valuable to us. And so, on down to free events that we host on Thursday and Friday evenings just to get people, downtown, up to those, high dollar events like Euphoria. We want to offer something for everybody in between and for a variety of viewpoints. And so that really was the desire, is to we don't want to single anybody out and feel unwelcome. We want everybody's money. So we want everybody to feel welcome and that there's something interesting in the community for them so that they come down and shop.
And to kind of piggyback on that, I'm glad he said, because that's one of the things that I see with a lot of times who we select to be on the ATAX committee are folks that it's not even from our community. They get hotel owners, restaurant owners that do not live in these communities. They live in gated communities, so they're not concerned about what's going on. So that's one of my I wouldn't say frustrations, but maybe one of my challenges. And I don't mind taking on a challenge, but I think we need to make everybody feel inclusive, because I had a lot of times from Blacks in this community, they, just like you said, Matt, they don't go downtown, and so if we have events downtown, very seldom can we pull them down there. And that should not be. It should be that everybody should feel like they belong, all over Beaufort County, and should feel welcomed. And so we need to use those ATAX dollars to promote not just tourists coming in, but making the culture that you say you're showcasing, those people feel like they're important, and you're not just pimping the culture to get the dollars for the hotels and the restaurants.
Amen. I know that's right.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you for that, on Pearly Sue. My final question, guys, what advice would you give to young, group or organization that's coming to seek out these resources for the first time? What advice would you give them? They're listening right now. They're in Beaufort, they're in Greenville, they're in Columbia. What advice would you give them right here today, moving forward?
You have not because you asked not. So you got to ask.
Mm,
And don't think you don't deserve it because you do.
mm,
And not to come in with a spirit of arrogance, but understand that what you do is important to Beaufort County, the Low Country, South Carolina. Tourism is the number one industry in the world, the number one industry in the state of South Carolina, and the number one industry in Beaufort County. And it's only second to healthcare in America. So tourism is a big deal. And so if you don't get it the first year, come back the second year and the
mm.
third year. Don't stop coming and get with your city councilman and your county councilman and say, I came, I was prepared, and I didn't get the funds. Why? Tell me why. And make us accountable for saying why you didn't get the dollars. Don't just accept a no for a no. Find out why it was a no and what you can do to make sure that next year it's a yes.
I love it. I love it. That's good stuff. Matt was like, yeah, that's a good one.
I
Yeah, Matt.
absolutely agree. It doesn't cost anything to apply. Anybody can put forth an application. There's a very low barrier to entry. We're here to help because we can't spend this money on anything else. It has to be spent on tourism, and so we want events that we can use the money to generate visitor spending. So I absolutely agree. If you don't succeed the first time, talk to your committee members and figure out, okay, what was I missing? What went wrong? Come back the next year. We have, we hear probably 40, 45 applications a year for our tourism funding. A lot of them are the same folks that come back every year. And so they know the routine, they know the high points to hit. And they're all public meetings. You can come and watch any application and any debate with the committee, and you can see, okay, here's what they're paying attention to. Here's the kind of things that that the committee's looking for. Now I know when I get up there or when I make my application, those are the type of things to focus on. So take advantage of free application process. You have the freedom to attend and watch any of the proceedings. If you're just kind of gathering your information and getting ready for a future event, you can see, okay, here's what they're funding, here's what they're looking for, here's what's missing from the community, because again, we're trying to fill some gaps. So absolutely agree. Nobody can the worst they can do is say no and or come back next year.
And let me just say, for Beaufort County applicants, you can go to Beaufort County website.gov and download your application. You have until October the 8th to turn it in, which is a week from today. And we will review on October the 26th. So you got a low window to still get an application in. And by the 26th, you have to be prepared to come and do your live interview before the ATAX committee. And we're going to pray that you get it. Amen.
Amen.
How about that?
Amen. Well, we are going to publish the information from both of your agencies on our website, along with a few other agencies that have sent in some information for us so that we can get that information out to the community. Any last words? I'm going to offer you just last words you might want to say about your program, your agency, your great community that you live in, and then I'll close out with some final words. Matt, why don't you start us off and we'll give Pearly Sue the final word.
Sure. We're gearing up for one of our biggest events of the year next week, Fall for Greenville. Yes. There's going to be 30,000 people downtown Greenville. It's going to be a great time. But then we're going to go into a lull during the winter season. And so that's one of the niches we're looking to fill in the future is sort of wintertime, late fall events. Greenville Restaurant Week will be coming up in November, December. That's usually a low point for our restaurants. And so if your community doesn't have a restaurant week, that's something that is a great tourism generator. You offer folks an opportunity to try restaurants they normally wouldn't for a fixed price menu. And it really helps your restaurants during their slowest time of the year. But everyone's, you're welcome. Come on to Greenville, bring your events, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Right.
And I'm gonna just piggyback on that because that's a great idea. I forgot about that. One of the reasons why we came up with the Sea Island Gullah Christmas celebration is because December was a slow month for Beaufort County. We're a military town, and so the restaurants and the hotels stay packed when we have military Paris Island Marine Corps graduations on Friday. But in December, they would take off. There would not be any graduations in December. So that was a low time. And so when we came up with the Christmas celebration, it was to fill that gap. And so, go on your city calendar, website, your county your county calendar, Hilton Head calendar, see what's being offered around, the county. And then you find those gaps that's nothing is offered, and that's where you put your event, because then because hotels and restaurant owners say we need something during that time because it's low for us, and so don't try to put it on a weekend that everything is already happening because their hotels are already filled, so they don't see no need to give you any money for that. So even when you go looking for other sponsorship, the hotel said, well, we already filled, so we don't, okay. But my reminder is always to them, it's 364 more days in the year. And I realize that when you don't have heads in your beds or butts in your seats, you ain't making no money. You losing money. So you have to remind them of the power of your efforts to have things going on, to encourage people to come here, to even know that there is a Beaufort. So you let them know that you're not begging them. You're not looking for a handout. You're looking for a partnership.
Amen. Well, thank you both, Man and Anita, for outstanding information. Again, we're going to make this information available on our website. This will be our final workshop for today. Tomorrow morning, we'll start off again at 9 a.m. Today was about identifying resources. Tomorrow is how to utilize those resources. We talk about digital media, talking about women in business, and they share some of their experiences and give some of their tidbits and some of their secrets to being successful in the tourism industry. Thank you guys for joining us, Matt, Anita. You guys have a blessed day. Audience, you guys, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you in the morning. God bless.
Give my love to your sweet Petunia, Quojo.
I will. I can't wait to tell her I was hanging out with you today.
Listen, tell everybody, remember December the 3rd, come on down to Beaufort, South Carolina to Sea Island Gullah Christmas celebration. We got a whole weekend of events planned, so come on and see us.
Awesome. We'll do, Aunt Pearly Sue. And Matt, I'm going to tell Mom Lillian, man, how you rocked out for us today. Thank you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Matt, I just want to ask you why y'all ain't got Aunt Pearly Sue coming for your fall event next week. That's all I'm gonna ask. I ain't gonna blast you out in public, but I'm just saying why you ain't called me.
Thanks. Y'all enjoy the rest of the conference.
All right. Take care.